Have our two great new senators from Georgia, Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff, joining me here on the balcony of the Capitol, where you see the great history of this wonderful country. And the message we're sending to people is elections have consequences. I stood with Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff and said, if they get elected and we get the majority, we are going to deliver things that matter to people. And that is just what we are doing. The bill that has passed the House and Senate will put $1,400 in the hands of the vast majority, not only of Georgians, as important as that is, but of Americans. We will have money to help take children out of poverty. We will have money that helps feed people who can't feed themselves because they've lost their jobs, they can't feed their families. We will have money to help bring rural hospitals and rural agriculture back. There's so much to do. And it wouldn't have happened without the steadfastness, the strength, the ability to get that message out to Georgians, but much more important than getting the message out to Georgians, to get it done. Without them, we wouldn't have gotten it done.
Well, thank you, Brother Leader, and you're very kind to say that, and I'm deeply honored to work alongside you and to be here just a few weeks and to see something really happen for the American people. And I certainly agree that this would not have happened without the people of Georgia. And so among the things in this plan, people are getting $1,400 checks right into their pockets, the earned income tax credit. And we know that when working people get relief, get support, they buy essential items like coats for their kids, food, medicine, baby diapers. That helps them and it helps the economy.
You bet. Jon?
I think that the child allowance, the child tax credit, doesn't get as much attention as the stimulus checks, but is every bit as important. Kids under 6 years old, we're talking about a $3,600 child tax credit. Kids over 6, a $3,000 child tax credit. This is going to have a huge impact to improve life for families who have been suffering economically, who have had to bear extraordinary child care costs. And then Georgia alone, Raphael, getting $4.5 billion for our public schools to safely reopen. Light is visible at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you. And you know, what Jon talked about, helping people get $300-400 more a month to help children. When a kid is born into poverty, they don't get adequate nutrition, they don't get adequate health care, they don't get adequate housing, they don't get adequate education. And they can never catch up. That doesn't just hurt them, that doesn't just hurt their families, that hurts America. And for the first time, we're really changing that, the first time in a generation. And again, without these two great people and now senators, it wouldn't have happened. It makes a real difference, folks. Winning elections when people keep their promises, which they have and we have, makes a huge difference.
Well, I know that story personally. I was one of those children, born in poverty. And so I know personally the difference that good federal public policy make. I wouldn't be here were it not for Head Start, Pell Grants, low interest student loans. And so when we invest in our children, we don't know what they might be able to contribute. I also want to say this, part of what Georgia is getting is $8 billion to our state governments, our local municipalities and cities, that they're getting the aid. And so when we do that, that helps essential workers to get back to work, firefighters, police officers. All of that is in this bill. A lot of good stuff here. And again, it wouldn't happen without Georgia.
Yeah, and let me just say, we made sure the money didn't just go to the state. Often the governors play games. Right. I don't know if that's true in Georgia, but it's true in a lot of states. Now, close to half the money goes directly to the cities, to the towns, to the counties, directly near people so they can help out directly.
Yeah, and it's such an improvement where last year, smaller cities like Augusta and Savannah and Rome, they had to beg the governor for the help. Right. Now we are sending that help directly to those smaller cities and to counties and to towns in rural Georgia. And that's going to keep police and firefighters, EMS employed. It's going to keep vital public services going. And just to have the resources coming for our public schools is so huge. I also think this reflects a different governing philosophy where people think about stimulus, bailouts for banks, tax cuts for the rich, tax cuts for corporations. 0% of these stimulus checks or tax credits go to the top 1%. This is investing in economic recovery by getting cash to working class and middle class people where it does the most good and where it's most needed.
If there was ever a strong bill for the middle class, this is it. For the middle class and those trying to get into the middle class, those trying to stay there. It's such a contrast between this bill and the bill when Mitch McConnell was leader. They passed a bill about the same size, and the vast majority went to the wealthiest people, the biggest corporations. We are aiming this at average families who need help in a variety of different ways. And let's not forget, opening up the schools is important. There are two other parts of the bill people may not know about. A lot of people invested in their pensions. And now, because of bad investments, they were going to lose those pensions. They were sitting there, not just them, their spouses, their children, even their parents. Will Mary get the pension that they put in for every week? We took care of that, and now they get the money that they're entitled to. And another one, health care, COBRA. You lose your job and you had health care. You don't have it anymore. Now you do.
And speaking of health care, $2 billion directly to Georgia to help Georgia finally expand Medicaid. And this will take 500,000 Georgians who are in the Medicaid gap out of that gap to make sure that they're covered. Again, this is support for them, but it's better for the economy.
Yeah. As you can see, we try to cover the gamut. Yeah. People, look, COVID has been terrible, the worst health care crisis in 100 years, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. But it's not that people were in such great shape right before it. So we're trying to deal with the problems that COVID has brought, but remembering we want to make it so that back 20, 30 years ago, the economy grew and everyone's salary grew at a nice clip. And they didn't have to struggle. We want to go back to those days, and that's what we're trying to do. This bill is not the whole answer, but it's a strong beginning.
And this good policy is attracting the support of the people. There is overwhelming bipartisan public support for this legislation. 3/4 of the American public. One of the most popular bills passed in recent history because we are targeting this support at working class families and middle class families instead of giving tax cuts to corporations and the wealthy.
So one of the things that COVID has done is it has illuminated and exacerbated long-standing disparities that are rooted in our racial past. And so I'm glad that we were able to get $5 billion of debt relief to farmers of color. I think that this is a move in the right direction, and it gives these farmers who've been struggling for so long, some of whom I talked to during the campaign, a fighting chance.
So I say to my two dear friends here, promises made, promises kept. We are keeping our promises. They are to Georgians, and we are as a majority to the American people. All right.